After a very long rough patch, DC is picking itself back up and getting on its feet with Joker. To put it simply, the new movie looks like it'll be the best that DC has ever made. Let us at the Binger tell you exactly why. Critical acclaim. Sure, superhero movies have been getting more praise by critics in recent years than they ever have before, but the critical response to Joker is unlike anything we've seen for a superhero, or honestly, any movie. Yes, Black Panther got some recognition at the Oscars, but critics weren't fawning over it, or any superhero movie save The Dark Knight in the way that they are over Joker. One critic called Joaquin Phoenix's performance so dazzling, risky, and original you might as well start engraving his name on the Oscar right now. That's about as clear a statement as you can get. The movie premiered at the Venice Film Festival on Saturday, and the crowd there loved it, to say the least. When the film ended, the audience gave it an 8-minute standing ovation. Yeah, you heard that right. Some of the most important people in the film industry were so impressed with the new Joker movie that they stood and clapped for 8 minutes straight. The positive reviews are coming from all types of media outlets too, not just the comics websites. Not only did IGN give it a perfect 10 out of 10, but the highbrow folks across the pond at The Guardian took a break from commiserating about Brexit and Boris Johnson to also give the movie a perfect score. 5 stars out of a possible 5. Not only is this unheard of for a comic book movie, this is unheard of for anything that gets reviewed, whether it's art, movies, music, or books. People are so rarely so unanimous about anything. It's based on an iconic comic. There's much we don't know about the upcoming Joker movie, but one thing is for sure. It'll be based, at least in part, on Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, which won an Eisner Award when it first came out in 1989. For those who haven't read it, The Killing Joke is often considered the best Batman comic ever, particularly because of its focus on the Joker and its deep dive into his origins. In the comic, the Joker is an engineer who decides to quit his job at a chemical plant to pursue his dream of becoming a stand-up comedian. Needless to say, the comedy club circuit is not enough to support his pregnant wife, so he turns to crime to make ends meet. He teams up with some criminals who he plans to lead through the plant where he used to work so they can rob the place next door, a company that makes playing cards. While planning the heist, his wife and unborn child die, and even though he tries to pull himself out, he's in too deep. The robbery goes wrong, and the soon-to-be Joker comes face to face with Batman. And in an attempt to escape the Caped Crusader, he jumps into a vat of chemicals, which disfigures him and turns him into the Joker that we all know and love? Years later, the Joker escapes from Arkham Asylum and has an iconic face-off with Batman that ends with the hero and villain laughing together at an iconic joke, which we won't spoil here. Although Batman won't appear in Joker, the film might be the beginning of a new DC cinematic universe, which would likely include Batman and hopefully follow the events of the comic. Maybe it's fate. While Marvel has spent the last decade and a half orchestrating their elaborately connected cinematic universe towards its conclusion in Avengers Endgame and continuation into Phase 4, it seemed like DC was doing the opposite, making half-baked, inconsistent attempts at movies that were inspired, to say the least, by the tone of the Marvel movies. But maybe they were just biding their time. This iteration of the Joker doesn't come out of nowhere. After The Dark Knight, it felt like the case was closed on actors playing the Joker. Heath Ledger had done a perfect job. He'd won an Oscar for it and had died right after filming the role. In other words, if anyone wanted to play the Joker again, they had their work cut out for them. Thankfully, Jared Leto came along with his face tattoos and over-the-top method acting and did such a bad job that he wiped the slate clean for anyone else who wanted to take a crack at it in the future. The role of the Joker is not only open, but the expectations have been set very high, so we can expect nothing but the best from Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips. Todd Phillips. He's not who most people would expect as the director of a comic book movie, but Todd Phillips could be the perfect choice. His directing career started with a documentary about G.G. Allin, the punk rock icon known for his extreme performances where he would get naked, cut himself on stage, and perform other unmentionable acts that we're not going to mention here. Years later, Phillips went on to direct Road Trip, Old School, Starsky and Hutch, and the Hangover trilogy. Most recently, he produced A Star is Born, the complete opposite of his punk documentary from the 90s. His resume might seem too eclectic, but at the same time, that might be exactly what a Joker movie needs. He's got experience with comedy and blockbusters, plus he spent time documenting the dark, perverse antics of a countercultural icon living on the margins. It's a match made in heaven. It sets the stage for a very interesting Batman. Although there have been some great Batman movies over the years, Batman hasn't always been their main draw. The real lifeblood of the character and the movies he's appeared in are the villains. The best Batman film was The Dark Knight because it had the best villain in Heath Ledger's Joker. The Dark Knight Rises was pretty good too, but even though the plot was on a way larger scale, Tom Hardy's Bane just couldn't compete. What's often considered the worst Batman movie, 1997's Batman and Robin, was dragged down to the depths it reached by, you guessed it, the villain, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. Although it's fun to look back and laugh at his chill puns, the only way people will watch this movie today is to be ironic or play a drinking game. The new Joker, if the critics are to be trusted, is up there with Heath Ledger's. But who will be his Batman? Apparently, it could be Robert Pattinson. In a recent interview with Variety, Pattinson, who is already confirmed to be playing Batman in some universe or another, slipped up and dropped a hint. The interviewer describes the moment. At one point in our conversation, he offers a mundane comment about Joaquin Phoenix, who stars in Joker, a movie he hasn't seen yet, adding that he's not accustomed to thinking about spoilers. I definitely should not say that. I'm so used to pretty art house movies where you can watch the movie 3 times and still not know what it's about. Although DC is still set to release 3 movies, including sequels to Aquaman and Wonder Woman, in its extended universe, the upcoming The Batman is confirmed to be taking place in the DCEU. Pattinson and Phoenix could definitely make an interesting pair. Cherry-picking the Joker's history. A lot of comic book movies get bogged down trying to be faithful to the spirit and specifications of their source material, leaving no room for a fresh take, much less a good movie. Joker looks to be neatly sidestepping that problem. At a panel after the film's screening at the Venice Film Festival, Todd Phillips described how freeing it felt to be able to go back through the Joker's history and just pluck the things he liked to use them for the movie. What was fun about it was that we were able to pick and choose elements from the past comic books and use what we wanted here, and maybe we'll use a little bit of that. They plucked, of course, from The Killing Joke, but also from a much older source. The Joker before the Joker. Although Joker will be drawing on DC films and comics for inspiration, the real germ of this new Joker comes from an old German expressionist film called The Man Who Laughs. The movie's protagonist is Gwynplaine, the orphaned son of a nobleman who has his face carved into a permanent smile by a group of outlaws. Sound familiar? Released in 1928 and based on a much older novel by Victor Hugo, The Man Who Laughs was the original inspiration for the Joker, way back when the character was first conceived. To flesh out the origin story, writers Todd Phillips and Scott Silver went back to where it all started, and looks to be paying off. Finally, a proper Joker origin story. Not all heroes wear capes, but they do all deserve a proper origin story. Although some of them, like Spider-Man, have had more than enough, others, like the Joker, haven't even had one. To be fair, the Joker isn't exactly a hero. He is at most an anti-hero, but maybe that's because we haven't had the chance to sympathize with his humble beginnings. In the Joker's film history, there have been some attempts at explaining his past, but not really. The most in-depth look at the Joker's origin has been him falling into a vat of chemicals. This is about to change. The new film is all about the Joker and his origins. It shows him struggling to work and make money in the dog-eat-dog world of Gotham City, which is apparently based on 1980s New York. His name isn't even Joker when the movie starts. He's simply known as Arthur Fleck, a struggling stand-up comedian who can't catch a break. He's misunderstood by everyone he meets, whether it be the audience of a show, a stranger on the bus, or his therapist. At a certain point, though, his view of himself changes, and instead of seeing his life as a tragedy, he sees it as a comedy, and asks to be called the Joker before he's set to go on TV and do a stand-up set. If you know anything about the Joker, you can imagine the chaos he'll cause once those cameras turn on. A political Joker. Joker hasn't even hit theaters yet, but there has already been a storm of controversy surrounding the political slant of the movie's story. The controversy centers around a disenfranchised man who, when he can't find success, lashes out. Some critics have equated the character with right-wing terror groups, who blame members of minority groups for their own shortcomings. These critics worry that the film will incite violence by giving credence to hateful, self-victimizing views that otherwise wouldn't find much place in pop culture. Others counter that the movie is more of a dissection and critique of this violence, a relevant study of a population that feels cut off from the levers of power and acts out of frustration. Judging by the ruffled feathers and standing ovations, Joker will be more interesting and complex than anything else DC is putting out, no matter what side of the debate and of history it ends up on. Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix's role as the Joker is a coming together of worlds that happens once in a blue moon. Rarely does a comic book movie see an actor with such an accomplished and anachronistic resume as its lead. First, the accomplishments. Although Joaquin Phoenix hasn't actually won an Oscar, he's been nominated for 3. His performance of Freddie Quell in The Master earned him a nomination for Best Actor. He was also nominated for Best Actor when he played Johnny Cash in Walk the Line. And for his turn as Emperor Commodus, he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Although they probably should have been Oscar noms as well, his performances in Her and Inherent Vice secured him his 4th and 5th Golden Globe nominations. So he's a good enough actor. But is he right for the Joker? The short answer is yes. But what may qualify him most for the role is real-life similarities and his penchant for causing chaos. In 2010, he released a movie called I'm Not There. It was not a conventional movie by any stretch of the imagination. Directed by Casey Affleck, it is a fake real mockumentary in which Joaquin Phoenix explores the role of celebrity by playing himself, but with a twist. The movie follows Phoenix while he's in a supposed tailspin. He claims to be retiring from film to pursue a career in hip-hop, and the gag actually gets pretty far. He appears as his alter ego on Letterman and even ends up in the studio with Diddy, who listens to a couple of his songs. At the time, it seemed like Phoenix was having a public breakdown, and he did nothing but add fuel to the flames. Although it's still an open question if I'm Not There made the statement it intended to, no one can deny its Joker-like celebration of chaos. If Phoenix can bring any of that to this new role, it'll be one to remember. Are you as excited as we are for this next Joker? Will the movie, like the Joker himself, descend the world into violent chaos? Let us know what you think about the upcoming film in the comments below, and subscribe to The Binger for all your Joker needs.